His mother's letter had exhausted him. With regard to its principal capital point, however, he had not been in a moment's doubt, not even as he read the letter. The principal essence of the matter had been resolved within his head, and resolved decisively. That marriage will not take place while I am alive, and to hell with Mr. Lutzin. Because the whole thing's perfectly clear, he muttered to himself, with a little smirk, maliciously exulting over the victory of his decision in advance. No, mother, no, Dunya, you won't fool me, and they even apologise for not having asked my advice, for having decided the matter in my absence. I should hope so. They think it's too late to undo it now, but we shall see about that. What a capital excuse. It's as if they were saying that Peter Petrovitch is such a busy man that he can only get married in a post-chaise or on the train. Practically. No, Dunechka, I see it all, and I know what the many things are that you want to discuss with me. I know, too, what you thought about all night as you walked up and down your room, and what you were praying about in front of the Kazan Virgin that stands in Mother's bedroom. It's hard work, the ascent to Golgotha. So then, it's finally been decided. You're going to marry a man of business and reason, Avdotya Romanovna, one who has capital of his own, who already has capital of his own, that's more solid and impressive sounding, who has two positions, and who, it would appear, is kind, as Dunechka herself observes. That, it would appear, is the most wonderful bit of all. It's because of that Dunechka, it would appear, is going to get married. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm intrigued, though, as to why Mother should have written me that bit about our most recent generations. Was it simply a character reference? Or did she have some ulterior motive to coax me into taking a favourable view of Mr. Lutzin? Oh, those cunning women. I'm curious to have some light shed on another matter too. To what extent were they both frank with each other that day and night during all the time that followed? Did they put it all straight into words? Or did they both realise that they had the same thing in their hearts and minds, so that there was no point in saying it all out loud and needlessly letting the cat out of the bag? There was probably an element of that. It's clear from her letter. Mother thought he seemed a bit harsh-mannered at first, and poor naive Mother went trotting off to Dunya with her comments and observations. And Dunya, of course, lost her temper and came back at her with a fair amount of irritation. I'm not surprised. Who wouldn't get frantic when the whole matter was perfectly clear without naive questions, and when it had already been decided that even to talk about it was spurious? What's this she writes to me? Rodya, love Dunya. She loves you more than she loves herself. Isn't that her conscience secretly giving her trouble for having agreed to sacrifice her daughter for the sake of her son? You're all our hopes and aspirations rolled into one. You're our everything. Oh, Mother! Malice was boiling up inside him more and more violently, and if he had happened to meet Mr. Lutzin at that moment, he'd probably have murdered him. It's true, he went on, following the vortex of thoughts whirling inside his head. It is true that in order to get to know anyone, it's necessary to approach them cautiously and by stages. But Mr. Lutzin doesn't take much figuring out. The main thing is that he's a man of business, and, it would appear, kind. It's no small matter that he should have taken responsibility for their luggage, forwarding that big trunk at his own expense. How could he be anything but kind? And the two of them, the mother and the bride-to-be, are hiring a mutzing and a cart with a hood made of bast matting. Well, I've ridden in just such a cart myself. It's nothing, only 90 versts, and we'll be quite happy to travel third class. 1,000 versts if need be, and sensible too. One must cut one's coat according to the cloth. But I say, Mr. Lutzin, what can you be thinking of? After all, you're the one whose bride she's going to be. Surely you must know that Mother is borrowing money on the strength of her pension in order to pay for the journey. Of course, You have a common commercial interest here, something undertaken to mutual advantage, and in equal shares. The expenses split 50-50, in other words, some bread and salt together, but a pinch of snuff apart, as the saying goes. And the man of business has managed to pull the wool over their eyes a little in this instance. Paying to have their luggage moved is less expensive than paying for their journey. And it may even go for nothing. Why can't they both see that? Or don't they want to see it? I mean, they're pleased. They're actually pleased. And to think that this is just the blossom of the boughs, and the real fruits have still to come. I mean, what's important here? It's not the meanness and the miserliness, but the tone of all this. I mean, it's setting the tone for the whole marriage. It's a prophecy. And why is Mother being so extravagant anyway? What's she got to have left by the time she shows up in St. Petersburg? 3 silver roubles? Or 2 tickets, as she, the old woman, calls them. What does she think she's going to live on in St. Petersburg afterwards? I mean, she must surely realise by now that it'll be impossible for her and Dunya to go on living together after the marriage, even just initially. The charming fellow has doubtless let the cat out of the bag on that score too, and showed himself in his true colours, even though Mother is warding off the invitations with both hands, saying, "I shall refuse." What does she think she's up to? What's she got to rely on? 120 roubles pension, with deductions in order to pay off her debt to Afanasy Ivanovitch. She knits her little scarves and sews her little armlets, ruining her old eyes. And I mean, the scarves only bring in about 25 roubles a year to add to 120. I know that for a fact. So one must conclude that she's relying on the nobility of Mr. Lutzin's feelings. He'll make the offer himself. He'll beg me. Don't bank on it. That's the way it always is with these Schillerian schöne Seelen. Right up to the last possible moment they'll deck a man out in peacock feathers, hoping for the good and refusing to believe in the bad. And although they have a sense that there may be another side to the coin, nothing will induce them to utter so much as one word of truth before they absolutely have to. The very thought gives them the shivers. They ward off the truth with both hands right up to the moment when the man they've adorned with all those virtues makes a fool of them. I wonder if Mr. Lutzin has any medals. I bet he has a St. Anne's ribbon and puts it in his lapel when he goes out to dine with contractors and merchants. He'll probably wear it at his wedding too, but devil take him. Well, Mother, I can understand. There's nothing to be done there. That's just the way she is. But I'm surprised at Dunya. Dear Dunechka, I mean, I know you. Why, the last time we saw each other you were just about to be 20. But I already understood your temperament. Mother writes that Dunechka can put up with a great deal. I could have told her that. I already knew that 2.5 years ago. I spent the past 2.5 years thinking about it, about that very fact that Dunechka can put up with a great deal. After all, if she can put up with Mr. Svidrigailov and all the consequences of that, she really must be able to put up with a great deal. And now they've decided that she can put up with Mr. Lutzin as well, who expounds the theory of the superiority of wives who've been plucked from poverty and are recipients of charity from their husbands. It expounds it practically at their first meeting, what's more. Well, all right, suppose he unintentionally let it slip, even though he's a man of reason, which means, perhaps, that he didn't let it slip unintentionally at all, but was simply anxious to make the situation plain as soon as possible. But what of Dunya? What of her? I mean, the man must be an open book to her, yet she's going to live with him. I mean, she'd live on black bread and water rather than sell her soul. She wouldn't give up her inner freedom for the sake of a bit of comfort. She wouldn't give it up for the whole of Schleswig-Holstein. Never mind about Mr. Lutzin. No, Dunya wasn't like that when I knew her. Oh, well, she hasn't changed, that's all. There's no use denying it. The Svidrigailovs are hard work. It's hard work trailing around in the provinces all your life as a governess on 200 roubles a year. But I know all the same that my sister would rather go and work with the Negroes on some plantation owner's estate, or with the Latvian peasants on some Baltic German. than defile her spirit and her moral sensibility by a liaison forever with a man whom she doesn't respect and to whom she has nothing to say, solely for her own personal gain. And even if Mr. Lutzin had been made of the purest gold or sheer unadulterated diamond, not even then would she have agreed to become the legal concubine of Mr. Lutzin. Why is she agreeing to it now? What's the game? What's the clue? It's not hard to see. She won't sell herself for the sake of her own comfort, not even in order to save herself from death, but she'll do it for someone else. She'll sell herself for those who are dear to her, those she looks up to. That's what this whole business is all about. She's selling herself for her brother, for her mother, selling everything. Oh, in cases like that, we suppress our moral sensibilities, our freedom, our peace of mind, even our conscience. All of it, all goes to the second-hand market. Let my life go hang, we say, just as long as those dear, beloved creatures of mine are happy. Not only that, we invent our own casuistry too. We study with the Jesuits for a time, perhaps, and put our minds at rest, convince ourselves that this is how it has to be, that it really must be like this if the good object is to be attained. That's just the way we are, and it's all as plain as daylight. It's plain that it's Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov, and no one else, who is at stake here, who has pride of place. Yes, of course, she can see to it that he's happy. Support him while he's at the university. Make him a partner in an office. Provide a whole future for him. Perhaps he'll be a rich man one day and end his days honoured, respected, even famous. And mother? But it's Roger. Her precious Roger, her firstborn. How could she not sacrifice even such a daughter as this for such an important son? Oh, loving and inequitable hearts, and what of that? In this case, we wouldn't even refuse the lot of Sonechka Marmeladova, eternal Sonechka, for as long as the world lasts. Are you completely aware of the size of the sacrifice you're making? Is it right? Is it being made under duress? Will it do any good? Is it sensible? Do you realise, Dunechka, that Sonechka's fate is in no way any uglier than the one you're contemplating with Mr. Lutzin? There can't be any love between them, Mother writes, but what if it's not only love, but also respect that there can't be? What if, instead, there's revulsion, contempt, loathing? What then? And what if it then turns out that once again it's necessary to keep oneself clean? Am I right? Do you realise what that kind of cleanliness involves? Do you realise that the Lutzin kind of cleanliness is just the same as Sonechka's cleanliness? And perhaps even worse, even more filthy and more vile, because you, Dunechka, can still count on a surplus of comfort. While over there it's quite simply a question of staving off death by starvation. It's expensive, that kind of cleanliness, Dunechka. Well, and what if your strength isn't up to it? What if you wish you'd never done it? Think of the hurt, the sadness, the cursing, the tears hidden from everyone, because you're not Marfa Petrovna, are you? And what do you think Mother will feel like then? I mean, even now she's uneasy, she's worried. But what about when she sees it all clearly for what it is? And what do you think I feel like? Have the two of you ever really stopped to think about me? I don't want your sacrifice, Dunechka. I don't want it, Mother. It won't take place while I'm alive. It won't. I won't accept it. He suddenly came to himself and paused. Won't take place? And what are you going to do to stop it, forbid it? By that right? By what right? By what can you promise them instead in order to possess such a right? To devote your whole life, your whole future to them? When you finish your course and get a job? We've heard that one before. That's just maybe. But what about now? I mean, you've got to do something right now. Do you realise that? And what are you doing? Robbing them. I mean, the only money they've got is what they can raise on the strength of 100-ruble pension and the patronage of the Svidrigaïlovs. How are you going to protect them? from the Svidrigaïlovs, from Afanasy Ivanovich Vakrushin, you millionaire to be, you Zeus, disposer of their fortunes. You'll do it in 10 years' time. But in 10 years' time, Mother's eyesight will have gone from all those scarves she's made, and doubtless from shedding too many tears as well. She'll have wasted away from hunger. And your sister? Well, just think what may have happened to your sister in 10 years' time, or even during them. Got it? With these questions he teased and tormented himself, even deriving a certain amount of enjoyment from them. Actually, none of them were new or unexpected questions. They were all old, painful ones of long standing. It was a long time since they had begun to lacerate his heart, and it was positively an age since his present sense of anguish and depression had come into being, having grown, accumulated, and of late matured and taken concentrated form, assuming the guise of a terrible, monstrous, and fantastic question that had begun to torture his heart and mind and inexorably demanded resolution. Only now his mother's letter suddenly struck him like a thunderbolt. It was clear that now was not the time to feel miserable, to suffer passively with the thought that the questions were not capable of resolution. No, instead he must do something, and at once, as quickly as possible. Whatever happened, he must take some action, or else turn my back on life altogether. He suddenly cried in a frenzy, obediently accept my fate, such as it is, once and for all, and stifle all my aspirations, renouncing every right to action, life and love. Do you understand, dear sir, what it means to have nowhere left to go? The question Marmeladov had asked the day before suddenly came back to him. For every man must have at least somewhere he can go. Suddenly he gave a start. A certain thought, another from yesterday, had flashed through his head. But that was not what had made him start. After all, he had known in advance that it was about to flash through, and he had been waiting for it. And in fact, it was not really a thought from yesterday at all. The difference was that a month ago, and even yesterday, it had been only a dream, while now it was suddenly no longer a dream, but had acquired a new, menacing and completely unfamiliar aspect, and it had been that which he had suddenly realized. There was a hammering in his head, and everything went dark before his eyes. Quickly he glanced around. He was looking for something. He wanted to sit down, and he was looking for a bench. At that moment he was walking along the boulevard. A bench was visible some 100 yards off. He began to walk towards it as quickly as he could. On the way, however, he had a little adventure, which for a few minutes took up all his attention. In spying out the bench, he had noticed a woman who was walking along some 20 yards in front of him, but at first had not let his attention dwell upon her, any more than it dwelt on any of the other objects that had flitted before his gaze until that moment. Many had been the occasions on which he had arrived home quite without remembering the route he had taken, and he was used to this kind of walking. There was, however, something strange about this woman who was making her way along, something that was immediately striking. At first sight, so that little by little his attention began to fasten itself on her, at first reluctantly and almost with annoyance, and then with increasing intensity. He suddenly wanted to find out just what it was that was so strange about this woman. For one thing, she could only have been a girl, and quite a young one at that. She was walking along in that blazing heat with no headwear, parasol or gloves, swinging her arms in an absurd sort of way. She was wearing a little silk dress of thin material, silk stuff, but she had it on in a very odd manner, with hardly any of its fasteners done. And in behind, just where the skirt began, at her waist, it was torn. A whole piece of material had come away and hung loose. She had a little triangular scarf thrown over her exposed neck, but it protruded sideways and was not on straight. To complete it all, the girl was walking unsteadily, stumbling, even reeling in all directions. This encounter finally aroused all of Raskolnikov's attention. He drew level with the girl as they approached the bench, but as soon as she reached it, she fairly flopped down on it in one corner, threw her head back against the rear support, closed her eyes, plainly in extreme exhaustion. Taking a close look at her, he at once realised that she was completely drunk. It made a strange and preposterous sight. He even wondered whether he might not be mistaken. Before him was an extremely young little face, that of a girl of about 16 or perhaps a year younger. A face that was small, framed by fair hair, pretty but flushed all over and somehow swollen looking. By now the girl appeared to be taking in very little. She had crossed one of her legs over the other, advancing it out far more than was decent, and it looked by all the signs as though she had only the dimmest awareness that she was out on the street. Raskolnikov did not sit down, but was reluctant to go away, standing before her in perplexity. This boulevard is always deserted, but now, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in a heat like this, there was almost no one about at all. Yet, to one side of them, on the edge of the pavement, some 15 paces away, a certain gentleman had stopped. By the look of him, he would also very much have liked to approach the girl with certain intentions in view. He had probably spied her from a distance and caught her up, but Raskolnikov had spoiled his plans. He was giving Raskolnikov malevolent looks, trying, however, not to make them too obvious, and impatiently waiting for his turn, which would come after the bothersome fellow in rags had gone. He was obvious what the gentleman was after. He was about 30 years old, plump and thick-set, with a milk and blood complexion, pink lips, a little moustache, and a very modish style of dress. Raskolnikov was filled with a terrible anger. He suddenly wanted to do something to insult this plump man about town. Leaving the girl for a moment, he went up to the gentleman. "Hey, you! Svidrigailov! What do you want here?" he shouted, clenching his fists and laughing through lips that had begun to froth with rage. "What's the meaning of this?" the gentleman asked sternly, frowning and expressing supercilious astonishment. "Clear off, that's what! How dare you, you riffraff!" And he brandished his riding whip. Raskolnikov rushed at him with his bare fist, not even pausing to consider that the thick-set gentleman could easily dispose of 2 men such as himself. Just then, however, someone seized hold of him from behind. Between them stood a policeman. "That'll do now, gentlemen. No scrapping in public places, if you don't mind. What do you want? Who are you?" he said to Raskolnikov sternly, observing his rags. Raskolnikov gave him an attentive look. This was a gallant soldier's face, with a long grey moustache and side whiskers. Its expression was an intelligent one. "You're the very man I want," Raskolnikov shouted, seizing him by the arm. "I'm Raskolnikov, ex-university student. It wouldn't do you any harm to take note of that either," he said, turning to the gentleman. "And as for you, please come with me. I want to show you something." And seizing the policeman by the arm, he drew him towards the bench. "There, look. She's completely drunk. She's walking down the boulevard just now. God knows who her people are, but she doesn't look like one of the profession. Most likely somebody gave her too much to drink and made her the victim of foul play. For the first time, do you get my meaning? And then just let her wander off down the street. Look how her dress is torn. Look at the way she's got it on. I mean, somebody put it on for her. She didn't do that herself. And whoever it was had clumsy hands, the hands of a man. It's obvious. And now look over there, that man about town I was just about to get into a brawl with. I don't know him, never seen him before, but he also saw her walking along just now, drunk, and not really aware of where she was, and he's just raring to go up to her now and intercept her, since she's in that state, so he can drive her off somewhere. I'm certain that's so. Believe me, I'm not mistaken. I saw the way he was watching her, spying on her, but I got there before him. And now he's waiting till I'm gone. Look, there he is over there now. He's moved away a little. I think he's rolling himself a cigarette. Are we just going to let him get his hands on her? Are we going to try and fetch her home? Think about it." In an instant the policeman had taken it all in and sized up the situation. The stout gentleman was easy enough to make out, but there remained the girl. The old soldier bent down to take a closer look at her, and sincere compassion showed itself in his features. "Oh, what a shame," he said, shaking his head. "She's still just a child. She's been the victim of foul play, there's no doubt about that. Listen, young lady," he said, trying to get her to sit up. "Where do you live?" The girl opened her tired, bleary eyes, looked dully at her interrogators and waved them away with one arm. "Listen," Raskolnikov said. "Here." He felt in his pocket and drew out 20 kopecks. He could spare them. "Look, hire a cab, tell the driver to take her to her home address, only we'll have to find out what it is first." "Oh, young lady, the policeman began again, taking the money. "I'm about to get you a cab, and I'll come with you in it myself. Where have we got to go, eh? Where do you have your quarters?" "Away. Stop pestering me," the girl muttered, and again gave a defensive wave of her arm. Oh, how terrible, how shameful, young lady, how shameful. And again he began to shake his head in embarrassment, compassion and indignation. "Why, there's a poser for you, sir," he said, turning to Raskolnikov. As he did so, he once again quickly looked him up and down from head to foot. No doubt he thought the young man strange, dressed in such rags, yet parting with money. "Was it far from here that you found her, sir?" he asked. "I tell you, she was walking along ahead of me, staggering to and fro right here on the boulevard. As soon as she reached the bench, she just flopped down on it." "Oh, what shameful things happen in the world nowadays, Lord in heaven. A simple little thing like that, and she's drunk. She's been the victim of foul play, that's for sure. Look, her little dress is torn. Ha! The depravity there is nowadays, and she's probably from a good family, one that's not got much money. There's a lot of those now. You can tell by the look of her that she's one of the delicate kinds, sort of ladylike." And again he bent down over her. Perhaps he himself had daughters like this, the delicate kind, sort of ladylike, with well-brought-up manners, and all the latest fashions already thoroughly assimilated. "The main thing," Raskolnikov said anxiously, "is to stop that villain getting his hands on her. I mean, he's just going to commit another outrage on her. It's perfectly obvious what he wants. Look at him, the villain. He's still standing there." Raskolnikov spoke these words loudly, pointing straight at the person whom they concerned. He heard them, and seemed on the point of flying into a rage again, but thought the better of it, and confined himself to a single contemptuous glance. Then he slowly withdrew another 10 paces or so, and once again came to a halt. "We can stop him doing that, sir," the old NCO replied thoughtfully. "All she has to do is tell us where to drop her off, and young lady," he said, bending forward again. The girl suddenly opened her eyes wide, looked attentively at them as though she had just realised something, got up from the bench, and set off back in the direction from which she had come. "Oh, you shameless brute! Stop pestering me," she said, with the same defensive wave of her arm. She was walking quickly, but staggering badly, as she had been before. The man about town began to follow her, but along the other side of the boulevard, keeping his eyes trained on her. "Don't worry, sir, I won't let him get away with it," said the man with the long moustache in a firm voice, and he set off in pursuit of them. "Oh, the depravity there is nowadays," he said again, out loud, sighing. At that moment Raskolnikov reacted as though he had been stung by something. In a single instant he seemed utterly transformed. "Listen! Hey!" he shouted after the man with the long moustache. The latter turned round. "Stop it! What's it to you? Forget about it. Let him have his bit of fun." He pointed at the man about town. "What's it to you?" The policeman failed to comprehend and stared at him. Raskolnikov burst out laughing. The old soldier said, and with a wave of his arm set off in pursuit of the girl and the man about town, doubtless of the opinion that Raskolnikov was either a madman or something worse. "He's walked off with my 20 kopecks, Raskolnikov said with vicious irritation when he was left alone. "Well, I hope the other fellow gives him the same to let him get his hands on the girl, and then that'll be the end of it. Why did I poke my nose in trying to help? Is it for me to do that? Do I have any right to? They can swallow each other alive for all I care. And how could I ever have gone and given away those 20 kopecks? Were they mine?" In spite of these strange remarks, he felt really terrible. He sat down on the abandoned bench. His thoughts were distracted ones. In general, at that moment, he felt terrible trying to think of anything at all. He would have liked to sink all his troubles into oblivion, forget everything, and then wake up and begin completely anew. Poor girl, he said, looking at the empty corner of the bench. She'll come out of it, cry a bit, and then her mother will get to know. First she'll box her ears, then she'll give her a thrashing, a hard, painful and ignominious one, and then she'll probably turn her out of the house. And even if she doesn't, then Daria Frantsovna's will get wind of it. Soon my little girl will start trotting about from one port of call to another. Then it'll be straight to hospital. It's always the ones who live very proper lives at home with their mothers and get up to mischief, or the sly ones who end up there. Well, and then hospital again. Vodka, the drinking dens, and again the hospital. And in 2 or 3 years' time she'll be a paralysed cripple, and the sum total of her years will be 19, or perhaps only 18. Haven't I seen girls like that before? And how did they get to be like that? That's how they got to be like that. Pah, so be it. It has to be like that, they say. They say that each year a certain percentage has to go off down that road to the devil. I suppose, in order to give the others fresh hope and not get in their way. A percentage. Nice little words they use, to be sure. So reassuring, so scientific. Just say percentage and all your troubles are over. Now, if one were to choose another word, well then things might look a little less reassuring. And what if Donetchka ends up in the percentage? If not this year's, then perhaps that of another. But where am I going? He thought suddenly. That's funny. I mean, I came out for something. As soon as I'd finished reading the letter, I came out. I set off for Vasily Island to see Razumikin. Yes, that's right, I remember. Now, but the only thing is, why? And how did the idea of going to see Razumikin happen to enter my head just now, of all times? It's extraordinary. He marvelled at himself. Razumikin was one of his old university friends. It was a point worthy of note that during his time at the university, Raskolnikov had had practically no friends, had avoided all the other students, never gone to see any of them, and received their visits with reluctance, but in any case they all quickly turned away from him. He somehow failed to take any part in their communal gatherings, their discussions or their amusements, and he had no share in any other aspect of their lives. He studied intensely, not sparing himself, and for this he was respected. Nobody liked him, however. He was very poor, and at the same time somehow haughtily arrogant and uncommunicative, as though he were keeping something to himself. Some of his fellow students had the impression that he looked down on them all from a certain height, as though they were children, and as though he had outstripped them all in terms of education, knowledge and convictions, and that he viewed their convictions and interests as something inferior. For some reason, on the other hand, he'd got along with Razumikin, or if that were putting it too strongly, had at least been on more communicative, more plain-talking terms with him. It was, in fact, impossible to be on any other kind of terms with Razumikin. He was an uncommonly cheerful and talkative fellow, good-natured, to the point of naivety. Beneath this outward simplicity of manner there lay, however, both depth of character and a certain dignity. The better of his companions understood this, and everyone liked him. He was very far from being stupid, though on occasion he really could be a little naive. His appearance said a lot about him. Tall, thin, always ill-shaven, black-haired. He occasionally got into brawls and had the reputation for being a bit of an athlete. One night, when out with some others, he had with a single blow brought down a certain pillar of the law about 6.5 feet tall. His capacity for alcohol was limitless, but he could equally well go without it altogether. Sometimes he indulged in pranks to an impermissible degree, but he often went for long periods without indulging in them at all. Razumikin was also remarkable for the fact that none of his failures ever upset him, and it appeared that there were no adverse circumstances capable of weighing him down. He could make his lodgings anywhere, even on the roof, put up with the most terrible hunger and the severest cold. He was very poor, and was decidedly his own sole supporter, scraping together what money he could from various odd employments. He knew a million ways of getting hold of money, always in the form of earnings, of course. For the whole of one winter he did not heat his room at all, and he asserted that it was even more comfortable that way, as one slept better in the cold. At the present time he too had been compelled to give up the university, but it was not to be for long, and he was hurrying with all his might to improve his circumstances so as to be able to resume classes as soon as possible. It was some 4 months since Raskolnikov had been to see him, and Razumikin did not even know where he lived. Once, a couple of months back, they had met in the street, but Raskolnikov had turned away and even crossed over to the other side, hoping the other would not notice him. And Razumikin, although he had noticed him, walked by, not wishing to bother his friend.